Hello and welcome to another episode of Crossroads Conversations, a podcast where diverse voices meet at the intersection of sociology, literature, arts and culture, and social impact. Today I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Oliver Bevington. Hi, Oliver.
Hello, nice to see everyone again.
Hi, that's true. And we have a special guest tonight, Kayleigh Öğüt, an American influencer living in Ankara. Kayleigh creates lifestyles and wellness content on social media with a strong focus on self-care, mental health, and holistic well-being. She has also started an exciting women's empowerment group, which we'll definitely dive into. Hi, Kayleigh. It's nice to have you here.
Hello. I love that this is the intro that you gave me because I don't think the majority of my audience would agree.
Is it? Okay.
I think everyone who follows me knows me as an American who's living in Turkey.
Okay.
And they don't know how important mental health and holistic well-being is to me and how it fuels everything I post, everything that I work on. And I've just launched a YouTube channel 3 months ago, which has hit some pretty good metrics, by the way. It grew quickly. But everything that I do is powered by my belief that we are beings who experience our environment very internally, and it impacts us. And then we have the power to become aware of that and create counter impact and heal and become better and become more in tune with who we are, our convictions, what we believe. So I love that you brought this up because I don't think the majority of my audience knows this about me.
Okay, well, hopefully after this podcast.
Now they're going to know.
Hopefully. Maybe we can start off with how you've come here.
So I would love to share how I ended up in Ankara.
Yeah.
So I studied abroad in Istanbul when I was 15 years old, and a lot of people also don't know that. And I did that, lived my life, moved on, and I never thought I would ever relocate to Turkey again. And then while I was studying abroad again, but in Italy, I was walking down the street on the way to get gelato, and I heard a Turkish man say "Afiyet olsun" on the phone. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know that word. So I had turned around and said hi. And that was how I met the man who is now my husband. And he and I had a whole idea that we were going to move to the States and do things differently. And the pandemic came, global economies changed, everything just got so crazy. And he actually got a job here that was really good for both of us. And so I ended up moving here really just by chance. And I'm someone who really cares about putting my roots down in the places I am. So with time, I have really adopted that I love being in Ankara and that this is a really great city and that I'm happy to be here. But that's how I ended up here.
Okay. You said you've been here like 15 years ago. Did you know Turkish back then? Or do you still, are you learning? Or?
So unfortunately, I'm a very lazy student.
Okay.
And I learned Turkish purely by immersion. Okay. I lived with a Turkish family and I went to a Turkish high school. So Türkçe konuşabilirim. Çok iyi. Ama.
Nice.
Yeah, but I try to study it, and I just am at a place where I'm like, I don't even know what I should be studying in it. And I'm looking for a Turkish-speaking club, but those are harder to find than English-speaking clubs. And so I do speak Turkish, and I can't easily read it and write it, but I learned so much by listening and repeating. That is how I learned Turkish, not by taking a class.
May I ask, Kayleigh, why Turkey in the first instance?
That's such a great question. I was very determined to study abroad when I was younger because I met an exchange student. And I was like, my brain was opened up to the world of possibilities. And so I pursued the possibility and I didn't have a country in mind. And the Rotary program said, we think you would really work well in Turkish culture. I know, that's so interesting. So I said, okay, sure. And really just by chance, I ended up coming here.
That's interesting. I wonder what connection they made between interviewing you, I suppose, and Turkish culture.
Yeah, I have no idea. I did many interviews, and I think, if I really, this is the first time I'm thinking about it, sitting here. If I really think about it, I think that Turkish people have a strength about them and a determination, and perhaps being, at the time that I was interviewing, I was 14. So perhaps the boldness I had and the strength that I had, they were like, she could fit in this culture really well. That's my most optimistic guess.
That sounds about right. I was wondering if I was watching one of your YouTube videos and you talked about the difference between hot and cold cultures.
Yes.
I wonder if perhaps that had played a part. I wonder.
I would wonder too. I think that I come from a very cold culture and Turkish culture is very hot in comparison. And I actually learned that term from a Colombian friend. And she says Turkish culture is quite similar to Colombian culture in the way that emotions are expressed. And I come from a culture where we don't really express our emotions so forwardly. So I have no idea if I was just hot within my cold culture and they connected it, or I have no idea about that.
It's interesting because I hadn't heard those terms before. And, well, as everyone knows from my accent, it's not subtle that I am English, a famously, notoriously cold culture, one would imagine anyway. But I've always considered myself probably the most emotive of my family, I suppose I would say. So I do fit in a little bit better amongst hot cultures, I think, than most Brits do. Anyway, that was just a thought I had.
Maybe it's a quality in you that allowed you to more easily adjust and settle here.
Potentially so, maybe so.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So you've said that what people know is that you're an American living in Ankara.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that came from? Like you were just sharing your experience?
So I never intended to become an influencer, and I still don't even see myself that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was originally using social media simply to promote my health coaching. I'm a certified health coach, and in the years that has transitioned into life coaching for different reasons. But I used social media to just hop online and say, hey, I have this certificate now. I would love to offer a hand. And that was the gist of it. I was not active on social media. I was very active in my local community, though. I was part of my Rotary. I was joining an entrepreneur group. I had an office space in a chiropractic clinic. I had multiple part-time jobs. I was very active in my community, and I cared deeply about people, and not just community, but collaboration. I believe we're designed for it, that we thrive when we collaborate. So when I got here, I was lonely. I was very lonely. And I was also thinking to myself, okay, since I closed everything I was doing over in the States, I need to find clients again online. And I didn't think that it was appropriate for me to pursue clients that were Turkish yet because I didn't have better language skills, and I needed to have deeper cultural understanding before I could life coach a Turkish person. And so I was trying to connect with my American audience by showing this is how I'm using all the tools I teach in my coaching to adapt to all these new challenges. Mm-hmm. So I shared a video about going to the grocery store, and I was like, usually I'm so independent and so brave, but this feels terrifying to be all by myself going out to this grocery store in this huge city. So I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to take that risk, and I'm going to take you with me. And it ended up kind of exploding. I got millions of views on these videos. And it was Turks, and it was people who were like, wow, you're engaging with our daily life in such an authentic manner. And so that's where my content shifted to, one, I recognized the algorithm, I recognized the SEO, I recognized the niche that was there, and I started to present myself as an American in Turkey, and I started making friends offline because of that. I found my first friend here because she saw me at the bazaar that her family goes to. So that's how that evolved.
It's so interesting, Kayleigh, and it's such fascinating content that you're producing. As listeners will know, I'm in a sort of similar situation to you. My wife is Turkish, and I am here primarily because of her. I want to ask you, I hope this isn't too personal a question.
Okay.
But your in-laws, your Turkish in-laws, what do you call them? Because this is a shout out to Jahit and Miliha. I love you dearly, both of you. Miliha Sultana, and as I call him, Babishko.
Oh. So I call them by their first names. And I didn't know that was weird until I was...
Oh, it's not weird.
I'm
the weird one.
Okay. I call my grandparents babaannes and anneannes. I feel like that's easier because grandparents are just squishier. They're just such grandparents. But with my in-laws and my culture, we never call, to my knowledge, in my subculture, we never call our mother-in-law mom. We would call her by her name. And I was in a hairdresser's place, actually getting my hair done for my wedding, and my mother-in-law came in, and I said, "Seher," and the whole salon went, "Oh!" And I was, but they have so much grace for me, and they understand that I'm foreign, and I'm really trying really hard. And there are just some places where I'm like, I just don't know how to change that part of me that fast. And I've evolved to call my mother-in-law Seher Jim. So I'm adding something cute to it. She calls me everything, Bitanem, Çiçeğim, Harshe. But there are places of me that, as you probably experience, as much as you assimilate, there are still places that you just can't force the assimilation.
Absolutely. Though I think ours may be a little bit idiomatic. My in-laws have two daughters, my wife and her elder sister, and they both call my father-in-law, Babishka. So I just started it as a joke. And it seems that
It's stuck.
we share a sense of humor despite our different
Good.
cultures. I was watching one of your videos and you talked a little bit about cultural shocks.
Yes.
Are there any of those you'd like to share with us?
It's a big question. Something that I don't know if the word proud is the right word, but I did my homework before I posted that video. I looked at other videos online, and this was part of my SEO research. I was like, if I'm going to make a video, I want to get it to the people. So I looked at other videos online, and a lot of the culture shock was, there's cats. Everyone drinks tea at any hour of the day. And someone had even said a culture shock to her was that you need a visa to get in the country. And I was like, I bet you I can dig deeper and I can go harder. So I don't want to pull out a particular culture shock. If you'd like to see the video, I encourage it. But I really went to the deep core culture shocks that I could find, the ones that 3 years later, they still jazz me up a little bit and I'm like, whoa, when I encounter it.
You're quite right. Please watch Kayleigh's video for her interpretations of what surprises, I guess, Americans and other international visitors about Turkish culture. It's very good, by the way.
And how about like other contents that you make? You mentioned about like the mental health and stuff like that. Coaching. Would you like to say a few words about that? Or?
So I'm, if I can toot my own horn, an excellent coach, in my opinion. And I've been training at that for 5 years, but it's built on top of my experience as a teaching artist. So I started in children's theater, and my education is rooted in creating space for children to socially and emotionally develop together. So that really fuels my coaching as well. And I have very intentionally done a lot of further education on my coaching, and I coach Turks now. I have a Turkish client that I've been coaching for over 1.5 years. So we create really long relationships, which is why my coaching is always affordable. I'm not going to talk about money or rates or anything, but I keep my coaching affordable because I believe as a coach, it's supposed to be an accessible service in the long term, not something that's just a quick fix. And it's about creating the space for people to, maybe for the first time ever, come to the table of their own brain and take all the thoughts in their minds and all the experiences they have and the beliefs they have and put it on the table and examine it and connect dots for the first time and have somebody there who can help you say, do you see this connection? Or do you see that you're not seeing this side of it? And things like that. So I love coaching very much. I'll mention that. I have a secondary YouTube channel where I talk a lot about wellness. However, I recognized a niche that wasn't being filled. So I take a really intense dive on wellness. And this is why I think most of my audience doesn't know I talk about wellness, because I believe that, this is just my personal opinion, when something becomes trendy, it loses its meaning. And I think that wellness online has really become an aesthetic. It's become a trend. It's become about the perfect morning routine and the best journaling prompts and the best juices and the best Pilates outfits and all this stuff. But wellness is actually, I would say the word for it more correctly is well-being. And it's actually this understanding that the systems of the body cohabitate and they co-interconnect, which is a made-up word, but they are so reliant on one another, and that we have neuroplasticity and we have this ability with the science now, which is amazing because we live in an age where information is accessible. So we can actually access the information that describes how our mind and body work together. So we can empower ourselves to realize that patterns and lifestyles of our youth are showing up in ways that we aren't even consenting to in our adulthood, and they might actually really be holding us back. And we have the ability, by looking at the synchronicity of the systems of the body, neuroplasticity, and the reality that change doesn't happen by force, it happens by shifting. We have so many tools available to us to be able to take stock of who we are, where we are at, identify where we'd like to go, and make a pathway there. So that's what I talk about in my wellness content, but it's very deep, it's very big, and so, yeah, it's hard to even map the SEO sometimes.
I think it's really important as well, like to keep it sustainable as well, as you said, that you teach that person to connect the dots, because you kind of have to do it on your own at some point in your life.
You do. If you want to be able to... Here's how it was in my experience. I realized that if I wanted to live the life, I knew that I could. And that doesn't mean materialism and it doesn't mean luxury, but it means having command over yourself. If you want to be able to live the life where you can understand your emotions, take your thoughts like into your own observation and direct them, you have to address your health and wellness at very core levels with the science, with kindness.
And would you be able to give us like an advice though, like maybe that we could do? I don't know.
Yes.
We could implement.
Well, Kayleigh, I just hit 40 last October.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. I wasn't always sure I'd get it sometimes. So any advice in terms of health and wellness going forward, I could really use it.
So I'll give you just a little cute example that one time when my babaanne learned that I'm a health coach, she's always telling me, you need to coach me, Kayleigh. And I'm like, my Turkish is just not there. But she said to me, what do you think I need to be doing at my age? And I flipped the question on her and I was like, what do you think you need to be doing? And she was like, more sports. And I said, I don't think so. I said, I think that you need to be having more fun and you need to be finding more creative outlet. And the next couple of weeks when I went over there, she showed me I crocheted this and I painted this and I put this together, and she had so much light in her. So I think it's a very big question, and it's a very broad answer that I will have to give to such a big question, but I think one of the greatest things that we can do is become curious about what our body is telling us. For example, if you have grown up, and I know a lot of students here have grown up with like fear of missing exams and the tests are so intense and all these things, but I want you to just put yourself into a kid's body for a second. If you're a teenager and you have to be at school and be up early every single day, but you're exhausted, right? You are studying until 12 o'clock in the morning, you're packing your brain full of everything, and you don't wake up at your alarm clock, and your mother has to come in and yell at you and get you up. If she does that over and over and over again, and you're waking up with a nervous system jolt over and over and over again, you might have this experience in your adult life that for some reason every morning you're anxious. And you have no idea why. You've graduated college, you've got your routines down, you have your friends, you have your social life, but every single morning when that alarm goes off, or if it doesn't go off and you wake up fearing you've missed your alarm, boom, jolt. So I think our first response is to say there's something wrong. Okay, we can say that. But instead of saying there's something wrong and I need to erase it, what if we say there's something wrong and I need to become curious? I need to be curious about what my body is telling me and take that moment to listen and literally asking ourselves, where is this coming from? And then we might come to understand, oh, the reason we're having this huge cortisol shot in the morning is because of what we experienced for 5 years at home every single morning.
I do sometimes believe that we also need to just chill out for a minute, you know? 'Cause sometimes I just feel like life is, I'm sure everybody like thinks like me, or like most of the people, but like we just live such a fast life that we always have to, we're such in a hurry, you know, we have to wake up in the morning, we have to get ready, and it's just a struggle of, you know, you have like that you have to finish tasks and everything like that. Sometimes I just feel like, oh my God, you know, Merve, just chill out.
Just calm down.
Calm down, and then maybe enjoy the moments or try to suck it all in. With the good, with the bad, I don't know.
So what I have encountered with people with coaching when I try to suggest to them, yo, take a breath, they're like, how can I? The world is like this and everything's happening like this and I need to do this and I need to do that and da 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 da. And so I think that what you're saying is, like, in theory sounds so common sense, but what is the state of your nervous system? Because we can think intellectually, I need to calm down. But if our nervous system is in a state of, I have to get this done or I'm going to die, then telling ourselves we have to calm down isn't actually helping our nervous system. So things that I have done to help my nervous system, when I was having, for some reason, huge anxiety spells when I was like 24, I started trail running. I was like, okay, if my body's going to try to run from a tiger that doesn't exist, let me go run. Let me go put my body into that physical state to show it, hey, actually, we're okay. We can handle this. So that's that point of curiosity. Because at first we come into this place of, I need to just chill. But what if you could come into this place of, I'm really curious by why does my body think it needs to move this fast? Why does my nervous system think I'm running from a tiger, or think that, like, that term comes from, in neuroscience, it's understood that emotional threats and physical threats cause the same chemical explosion. The amygdala still triggers. It's like explained that in evolution, that was needed because you were literally running from a tiger. But now, all you're worried about is an exam. but it's still life or death in the body. I believe that curiosity is what opens the door because it puts us into a place of seeking discovery and safety and creativity instead of trying to find the problem and blame it and fix it. Do you get what I mean?
Yes, it's very interesting. And of course you have applied these sorts of ideas to what it is to be an expat living in Ankara. So what are the things that I suppose, and I hope this isn't too personal, what are the things that are making you feel, when you're living in Ankara, like you're running from a tiger?
Oh, absolutely. The overpopulation. It's so populated. I live in an apartment that faces a main street. So I am so used to, when I was a child, I'd walk out of my front door and here's a huge oak tree and a country road. And now I walk out of my front door and there's a dolmuş, there's a taxi, there's somebody yelling, there's a dog running by. It's so intense. And so the overpopulation really gets me. And also the hot and cold cultural difference. When I was first here, my husband was having a conversation with somebody at the gas station and I was like, they're about to fight. And I asked him what happened and he said, oh, we were just talking about gas prices. And I'm like, oh. So sometimes for me, that emotional expression, I'm like, I feel threatened. Even though I'm not being threatened, I feel threatened. And so these things are very like sensorially overwhelming and triggering. And I used to find that I could go on really long nature walks and that would help me get so grounded. But here that's not really an option. So these things trigger my nervous system and get me all worked up. So the question might be then, how am I addressing that? Well, one, I bought a treadmill so that I could walk inside.
Strangely, actually, Kayleigh, I just recently bought one as well, strangely.
Yeah. In my first year here, I would put nature hikes on my TV and just sit there and watch it because I was like, I miss the trees and I miss the green. And I also have really worked on finding community and people so that for me going outside, because it used to be so, of course I haven't lived a life where I've just never worked. Of course I have to go outside, go to work and things, but I used to go outside so much to enjoy being outside. And so I have really worked hard to find people that I can connect with and meet coffee with. So when I'm going out for a purpose. I'm not trying to go out and go for a walk in the environment that stresses me out. Instead, I'm going out and going to meet the person that helps me feel seen and heard and like I have meaning here more than just being here by chance.
Merve, what would you say about living in Ankara from your own perspective?
Because I've lived abroad as well. I'm local. I live in Ankara.
You're
half of my
Ankaralı?
life. Yes, I'm Ankaralı. True. And I think compared to Istanbul, because I've lived there briefly as well, I like Ankara because it's very chill compared to
it's
Istanbul.
all perspective.
And to be honest with you, I'm actually very privileged in terms of where I live. It's literally, if I get out of my building, in 2 minutes I can be inside, the Ottu forest. So I'm literally living.
You have a nature area.
You and I live close together, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, because
Okay.
if you're close to Ottu, then I'm close to Bilkent.
But it's still nearby. And so whenever I actually feel overwhelmed, I have the privilege of, okay, you know what, I can take a walk inside the forest.
Yeah.
So that's a huge privilege, especially after COVID. We all had to stay in. Living, near a forest has changed my life. And in terms of we were talking about running as well. That's actually where I started running.
Yep.
And right now I'm starting to do some trail running as well.
Good.
So doing these physical activities as well, it's so for me, I feel like I'm a privileged person who's living in Ankara. I can see that's overpopulated. I can see especially the traffic has been bad.
Crazy.
The past few years. But to me, I like it. But in terms of community, I agree with you because sometimes I felt living abroad that when I come back to Turkey, I'm not 100% with the same level with the locals. I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. It just...
No, I know what you mean, because when you're an expat, there are other expats.
Yeah.
And all the expats are looking for connection.
True.
Because we're all homesick, we're all
is.
disoriented.
Yeah.
So it's easy to connect with an expat almost out of desperation sometimes.
True.
And whereas in your own hometown, everybody is just in their own life. And if you have expat experience and other people don't, that's a huge place of lack of connection. Not that it's wrong or bad or anything to judge. It's just a place of lack of connection.
That
And
is
that's
true.
fair.
yeah, like you would understand that sometimes you just don't feel like you belong to that community or like you don't belong to that group of people. So you do seek out to find like-minded people. So it is a struggle for, especially I'm sure for you guys as well, because like I am Turkish, so I can mingle more obviously, and wouldn't be having your experience in Ankara, but I do sometimes understand what the expats might be feeling living here.
You know what, actually, as you're both speaking about this so in such articulate ways, it strikes me almost as what maybe some of our students feel when they first start their undergraduate, when they first come and start their first year of university education here at TEDU.
Even students who are Turkish from other cities.
Oh, absolutely. First time away from home, first time away from their parents, their emotional support network.
It's gone.
It's gone, and they have to relearn that in some way. And this idea of, I think it's relearning your nervous system in some way. I know that's probably not a particularly articulate way to say it, but I guess they go through something similar, many of them anyway.
Yeah, it's almost becoming, just to jump off that nervous system point, it's almost becoming aware of your nervous system. Because when you're in safety and you're in routine, you're not thinking about your body almost betraying you. Because I can recall times in university where I straight up had a panic attack. And I'm like, what is my body doing? What is going on? And that was some of the stuff that led me to getting so interested in studying body-mind connection, neuroplasticity, all that. So it's almost even becoming aware that your body has emotions that are bigger than you can intellectualize. And when you don't have that safe spot that has been your safe spot for the last 16, 18 years, you become more exposed to yourself.
True.
Absolutely. And it feels sort of that an important thing for both groups, for expats like ourselves, for people like yourself, Merve, but also for our students. It's about connecting and making a new support network of some sort as well. Engaging with your body in exactly the way you say, understanding that it can betray you. I very much like that term, because it can.
Because it really does feel that way, right? It really does.
But then I think, creating, kind of a network of support around you, which is hard for expats, as you've described.
Well, and I think it's really important to understand yourself. And this is why I'm like, get curious about who you are and what you're feeling, because what are you expecting of that network group when you go into it? Are you expecting them to replace the security your mom and your sisters and your brothers gave you? Or are you just expecting a friend who can meet for coffee? And sometimes not understanding your own expectations can cause us to have emotional misunderstandings with one another and can lead us into these places of miscommunication and, well, I thought this and I thought that. And I had a comment recently on one of my YouTube videos that said, this was a Turkish person, so it's not me saying this about Turks. They said that we expect people to understand how we feel and what we think, so when they say something rude, we expect them to understand the impact it had. I was surprised by that comment because I've experienced that from a Turkish friend or two where some miscommunication happened and I could have never known what they were thinking and feeling, and they were not telling me their expectations. So there is a personal accountability when we fly the nest and we seek those friends and we seek that community, that we understand first what are our internal boundaries, our internal beliefs, and our expectations of other people, and are those expectations healthy and fair?
I actually agree with you as well in terms of like me. I really don't want to sound rude as well, but I do think that Turkish people, whenever you talk, I think there's a miscommunication in terms of how we try to communicate with people. We do have that thing that we have this thought, and if we don't actually communicate it, and if you don't say it to the other person, we do
have an expectation
that they will understand us or what we're going through, or maybe feel what we're feeling. But I think you do need that, solid, go out and then just say what you're thinking.
And being able to communicate that without shooting arrows. Being able to communicate, this is my inner experience, these are my emotions, these are my thoughts, without trying to force the other person to feel what you're feeling. It's a big jump of maturity.
It is, yeah.
And this season of life really helps us start that journey.
And we're talking about the community and making one. And I know that you're empowering women as well
Yes.
with your own community. So
Yes.
what are you doing with that?
Yes.
Yeah, would you be able to share
So
with us?
I have a private networking group called Embolden Her, and it originally started with me realizing once I started making friends here, I was like, wow, I bet there are a lot of expats who are super lonely. So I got into one of the expat Facebook pages and I posted a post that said, "Hi, my name is Kayleigh, and I love things like self-improvement and health and ambition and talking about these things. Would anyone like to get a coffee?" And 15 or so women responded. So I ended up just making an event, and with my professional and educational background, I'm really equipped for organizing social events. So it was awesome. It went really well, and I talked about it on my TikTok, and a bunch of Turkish women were like, "Can we join?" And I'm like, yeah, of course.
I was just going to ask that. Can
Yeah.
Turkish people join as
Yeah,
well?
so it is mostly Turkish women now,
Okay.
and there's about 80 of us in the group right now, and it changes, and you have to apply to get in. And I do this because, one, I want to protect the privacy and integrity of all those who are involved, and two, we are gathering and talking about very sometimes intimate and vulnerable topics, and if it's just an open club to just absolutely anybody, that doesn't have the same safety feeling. So I have a private WhatsApp community, and I send them voice notes and such, but I also organize multiple events every month. And I just did a party. There was like 3 expats including me, and 4 including me, and the rest of them were Turkish women. It was like 13 Turkish women, and they all told me it felt like a kadın günü.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I was like, oh, that's so great. And we're working on developing a monthly mom support group within the group. There are mothers in the group. The age range is 19 to around 46, which is huge. And you had mentioned earlier finding like-minded people. I think it's actually way harder to find like-minded people than we realized because every single one of us is so unique.
True.
So what brings us together in this group is that it's focused on ambition and personal development for the intention of creating positive impact. So it's not focused on any one person, it's focused on community collaboration and empowerment so that we can impact other people too. And that's what has brought us all together, and it's a very diverse group of women, actually. And every time we meet, it's such incredible socializing and connecting. We play games. I always give a presentation on some type of topic, and one of our best ones was how to set boundaries and how to do it without bullying people into doing what you want them to do or not do, but instead become curious. What are your boundaries? Who are you? What are you operating from? So it's a really incredible group. If anybody is listening and they want to apply, you can do that by reaching out to me and I'll send you the application. Or there is an Instagram page. It's just, the username is just Embolden Her. Maybe there's an underscore, I don't know. But you'll find it. And it's a very small Instagram page because this isn't something that I broadcast to grow in numbers. This is something that I invest in deeply to grow in quality.
So is there anything else you would like to add, or
Well,
do you have any questions? Or?
I suppose I'd wonder, Jem, in terms of this sort of idea of wellness emboldening women, do you see that in Turkey as well?
I think maybe it's just starting out right now, like recently. I think maybe you might know better if you have done like some research about it.
So I have been told by women in the group that this is the first group that they've been able to find like this.
All right, okay.
The feedback I've received is it's the only English-speaking club that stays in English. That's because it's led by me.
Yeah, I've actually heard that. Like, 'cause sometimes like Turkish people, when they were like, for example, the speaking clubs.
Yeah.
I don't mean to point out to any groups or anything like
Right,
that.
right.
But I do hear that like you go there and once there's a lot of Turkish people, they just start talking
Yeah.
Turkish.
Yep. So
So-
I've gotten that feedback. I've also gotten the feedback that because I have really kept it as women, it's a very woman-safe space, and that co-ed groups tend to get very flirty, is the feedback I've received. And I've also been told that it's the only group that is not charging money to meet. I had a woman tell me that there's a mom group that charges $25 a meeting to go to a park and sit down and talk with other moms. I was like,
Really?
whoa.
Wow.
And there's another group that's charging like 10K lira a month to meet at coffee shops and have coffee and speak English.
Really?
So our monthly events are always free, and there's never an expectation, and not everybody does it, but you can bring snacks and stuff. We contribute like that. And we're moving into some more workshops that are collaborating with other professionals. So those might cross out of that like strictly free place. But again, I live by the professional motto that undercharging and overserving is the best way to impact the most amount of people. So
I think it's a good way to create community as well, like, because I do believe that those, as you said, like-minded people would come up, and then I think, for example, everybody bringing their snack, that's just a way of
connecting and collaborating, and it's been really great. Our next workshop is about financial literacy and financial freedom. And we have a woman in the group who I'm always very impressed by. She's younger than me. She's built a crazy business, and I'm working with her to help share a workshop on helping other women find opportunities in their lives to do their own version of that. Yeah. And I'm very excited about that workshop.
Oh, that sounds very interesting.
Well, it all sounds wonderful. It's remarkable, this kind of space that you're moving into. And I'm sure your advice is extremely helpful to many people. If you could offer perhaps one piece of advice would help them navigate their lives in Ankara, what do you think that would be?
I would say we all hear trust the process. We know this term. But trusting the process is built on optimism, positivity, and faith and hope. If you are going through your life working toward big dreams, working toward big goals, and you're trusting the process in bitterness and spite and anger, you're counterproductive. You're working against yourself. And it's totally fair. I totally get it. I have so many Turkish friends. I know the stress that people are facing, especially in this season of life. But if you harbor emotions of bitterness, anger, resentment, even hate, is mixed into that, and that's what you're trusting the process with, you're literally pouring salt water into a freshwater cup. You're ruining the process because the energy that you're putting into what you're doing is energy that kills what can grow. So when you trust the process, remember that hope and optimism and love and faith are the emotions that pour life into what you're doing and help it grow.
Sounds like good advice to me, certainly.
Thanks.
So, I think that is all for today's episode of Crossroads Conversations. I want to thank Kayleigh very, very much. It's been fascinating.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we should make sure, if you are listening to this, that you follow her on Instagram, on social media. Check out her YouTube videos. I have done myself. They are great. Kayleigh, would you like to give a plug?
Yes, I will say you can find me anywhere with just my name, Kayleigh Öğüt, or if you got to use the English letters, Öğüt. My username is the same across all platforms.
Excellent. And of course, you can follow us, as always, on Instagram at Ankara Expat, or the Instagram for TED University, which is University TED. I want to thank everybody who's been part of this today. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and we'll see you and hear you and talk to you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.